Hi, folks. Chris Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com, the ChrisVossShow.com. Hey, we're coming here with another podcast. And of course, we have the most excellent audience and the most excellent guests. We're bringing in another wonderful guest for you here today that I've been super impressed by. But before that, be sure to refer the show to your friends, neighbors, relatives, dog, cats, pool boys, mistresses. Get everybody to listen to the show. We certainly appreciate you referring the show to your friends. Tell them to download it at iTunes, Google Play. They can also go to youtube.com/Chris Voss. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit that bell notification. We've got the new AT&T Samsung Galaxy S9 we're reviewing, and we're posting it up against the, the S8 and the Note 9 or 8. I'm losing track of how many phones there are these days. Plus, you can see the puppy and all the reviews we do and the great podcast. The most excellent guest that we have today, I feel like I'm Putin at this point. We have the most excellent guests. Is Bryan Luoma. And Bryan is the founder and CEO of CAD Sourcing, a computer drafting company working with architects, engineers, contractors, and manufacturers throughout the US and Canada. He has successfully merged a growing global business with social awareness that now employs more than 60 people in the US and the Philippines, and he's having a positive impact on the communities they work in through various CAD giving efforts. So welcome to the show, Bryan. Certainly appreciate being here.
Thanks a lot, Chris. I'm super excited to be here.
Cool. Hey, so give us your plugs. Tell us where people can find you on the interwebs.
Sure. The info regarding our company and the CAD giving initiatives that we do is at our website, cadsourcing.com. Anyone that wants to can reach out to me at my email, brian@cadsourcing.com, BRYAN. I'm happy to talk to anyone about the stuff we're doing, social entrepreneurship, any of that good stuff. I'm always eager to reach out to people on that.
Sounds good. And it sounds like you've got your finger in a lot of different pies. You're not just an engineer doing the nerdy business of CAD. Explain to people what a CAD is to those laymen.
Sure. So CAD is the generic term for computer automated design. AutoCAD is probably the most popular program that people are familiar with. We basically use computers to draft the blueprints and construction documents for architects and engineers all across the US.
Awesome, man. That's awesome. So how do you grow a 7-figure business with a remote team like you have?
Well, I mean, it's a lot of hard work. It's just like everyone else, right? I mean, when I first started the business back in 2011, it was me in a notebook, and then I hired our first couple of people. We put up a website. And started getting clients, and my cousin, who was helping me in the Philippines at the time, I told him, you better get some people on board. So we quickly hired. Actually, in the first year, we went up to like 20 people, and then I realized that it was probably growing too fast. We scaled it back down, and then in 2012, we hired another 10, and now we're over 60 people in the Philippines, plus another 10 people here in the US, salespeople, project managers. It's been a fun ride for sure.
Wow. So you got an interesting experience in building a global business. I think a lot of our audience can learn from. Talk to us about changing business with positive workplace culture.
So I think that one of the stereotypes that an outsourcing company like ours is, where we utilize resources from various parts of the world, where we have drafting services in the Philippines and then project managers here in the US, is that it's a sweatshop, right? That we're not treating our employees right. And I think that was maybe the first generation of outsourcing, but now, in what I would like to call the second generation of outsourcing, we're doing outsourcing in a better way. So we're improving the lives of the people we're working with. We're giving them health insurance, benefits, really providing a positive workplace culture, and really trying to improve the communities that we work in this way.
So you're doing business in the Philippines as well as here in America. Why the Philippines? What brought you guys there?
Sure. Well, I'm Filipino. That's the quick answer.
Okay.
My mom immigrated from the Philippines 40 some years ago, and just like many immigrants, I think she came here to to have a better life for herself and for her family. And so she was in the beginning, when we didn't start with very much. She was sending $100 back maybe a month, and every once in a while she was sending cousins or whatever to school. And as she kind of improved her financial situation, she was able to do more. And then, so when I had this opportunity to start a business in the Philippines, I was I had the passion for it, in part because I was able to help initially my family directly in the Philippines. I hired, family members to work with me, and then as that was growing, I was able to help other people in the community. So we're bringing engineering jobs to the communities in the Philippines that there aren't that many of those. Most of the people that graduate with architectural and engineering degrees, they end up going overseas, whether it's to the Middle East or Japan or Europe or even the US, because that's where the jobs are, and there aren't really there in the Philippines. So we're able to provide jobs for them right there in the Philippines so that they can stay home. I mean, that's where they want to be. They want to be with their families there instead of spending 8-10 months out of the year overseas at some other location.
Having great engineers is the real core to building a great country. I know that for years now, recently, they've been complaining about how we're not outputting enough engineers. And with engineers, they are the ones who really help build America. I mean, the Hoover Dam, all the great things that this country has done in the last 100 years to 200 years was done by engineers. Even George Washington was a great engineer, if I recall correctly, or Ben Franklin, one of the two. And they helped lay the groundwork for Washington, D.C., what was being done there. And I think I read somewhere that, I mean, basically the fact that we had so many great, powerful engineers is really one of the things that built this country and made it the way it is. Of course, putting the man on the moon with a spaceship and stuff. And one of the alarming things I guess they're seeing now in our American community is we don't put out a lot of engineers. A lot of kids aren't interested in it. They're interested in playing video games and, I don't know, getting Starbucks for $4 for coffee or whatever they do nowadays. I don't know, playing Fortnite.
Sure.
And, not enough of these kids are going into science, into engineering degrees, and that's really where the future of our country lies. And so I imagine the same is true for like the Philippines, where you've got to have engineers helping build your country, build great bridges, great roads, great infrastructure that can do all the things that it needs to do to make it successful. So that's great that you give back. I've always been amazed at immigrants that, especially in Mexico, where they send the money back to the family. I'm not sure that if I ever made it to the golden land and became successful, I'd be like, well, I'm sorry, guys. If you come over here, I'll help you go to work. But sorry, man, I made it, and sucks to be you.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. In the Philippines, the number one industry is the BPO industry, so the business process outsourcing. The Philippines has become the number one destination for voice outsourced stuff. So if you call a customer service line, more often than not, it's somebody in the Philippines.
Wow.
But the second largest industry is Filipinos working overseas, sending money back to the Philippines. That's the second largest source of income for the country.
Wow.
Is all these Filipinos that are living overseas and sending money back to the Philippines. So it's part of the way of life there. And I agree with you. I think that as the Philippines grows, and develops and becomes better and better, they're going to want to keep more and more of those that talent pool home. And you got that brain drain that you maybe have heard about, of people leaving. They talk about it in communities, and it's true of a country as well. So I was actually lucky enough to meet with the mayor of the city of Cebu, where our office is, and we were talking about the next generation of outsourcing and how it's going to be higher level stuff, and you're going to have opportunities for these really intelligent people to stay local within the Philippines and create a smarter workforce for them locally. We don't, we're just the drafters, so it's CAD sourcing. We work for architects and engineers. A lot of the work we do is in fiber optics, cell towers, fiber cable installations. And like you said, not only can we get kids to do engineering, it's even harder to find a qualified high-level drafter that wants to do 100 cell towers every month, or utility poles with a small cell antenna on it, do 1,000 of those day after day after day. It's really becoming the blue collar work of the engineering profession. And so I know the people in the Philippines, as you can imagine, are very happy to step in and help where there's currently a labor shortage, and that affects, you talked about building the Hoover Dam and the highway network and stuff like that. Right now, the infrastructure need and boom is in the telecom industry. You see the AT&T commercials and Verizon commercials, and it's an arms race to get that map all red or all blue or all yellow in Sprint's case. And the only way you can do that is to get the infrastructure up and installed, and somebody's got to design all those utility poles and all that fiber that get installed and cell towers and
make them look like trees.
Yep.
People are happy having it around their area. They don't notice them.
Everyone wants the Internet of Things and every single thing connected to the internet, but you need to have the infrastructure to move all that data. I was at a telecom conference, and they're talking like the data consumption in the U.S. going up like 20 times in the next 5 years. So
the beauty of the internet too and information is you can do this thing where you can outsource, you can hire people around the world. I know development teams that they literally don't have an office in Silicon Valley or anywhere, and they operate just pretty much out of their basic homes or basic little offices they have. And one guy's in Japan, one guy's in somewhere in Russia, another guy's in Europe, and just people all over the world that they're building these things for. And it really is amazing because you can do video now so well over the internet where you just feel like you're sitting next to somebody. And it's just really, really amazing. Yep. So growing a global team, I mean, you've done that. It's a well-accomplished thing. And I imagine you're going to keep doing more of that as you go. What sort of impact does that have on global expansion and having a positive impact in the world, I guess?
Well, one stat that kind of spoke to me that I was looking at globalization and that idea is that in the early 1900s, 90% of the world's population was considered to be living in abject poverty. In other words, less than $2 a day in income. And since globalization started in the 50s, and we really have created this global market of utilizing resources all over the country, and even though some of it's been bad, we talked about the sweatshops and stuff like that, but even with that, the percentage of the world's population that lives in abject poverty is around 5% at this time. So all of that improvement is really because of the globalization of the world, and so my idea is that to point out how good that is and how we shouldn't be secluding ourselves from the rest of the world, how we should be embracing the Western world, how that's not only improved the lives of Americans, but it improved the lives of the entire world. And if you think of us as a community on a global scale, and how good that is, and really, so that's something that I like to point out to people.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting to me. We're seeing this rise of nationalism, this hatred towards immigrants. It's ironic to me that there's so few immigrants in the U.S. I think it's just a few percentage points, and somehow 350 million Americans think that 1% of immigrants are taking all their jobs or something. It's interesting to me how people use the math in that, or it's math, I should say.
In general, it's the jobs that nobody wants,
Yeah, I mean, no one wants to pick oranges. No American wants to pick oranges, and they don't want to do a lot of the labor things. But they're real damn angry that people are taking their jobs that they don't want to do. And it's funny, the jobs seem to go anyway. I mean, we do have an interesting crisis in this country with automation and robotics and AI that we've got to get people retrained and reskilled and retooled. And we're not addressing that. Instead, all we're addressing is the ugliness of we must hate someone who's different than us because of, whatever flag they fly to. Mm-hmm. And really, we're all human. I mean, it used to be we had this really unsettled world that was constantly in war with each other, world wars with each other. And the real democratization of our humanity as a whole has been us learning to, instead of war with each other, be economically dependent on each other. I mean, even now, Russia, China, Japan, other countries that we used to war with are like, well, I guess we'll get along. We don't always get along the greatest, but we get along because the dollar overrules the path of war. So it's good that way, and it's amazing to me. More people don't recognize that, but some people just don't want to give up the past and move on and progress to something new. So it's cool you're leading the way on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just people have trouble visualizing the future, and they were comfortable at one point, but the world's changing. And I think that's part of what we need to do is kind of show that, show the path forward. And really the stagnation in workers' wages and stuff has a lot to do with our ability to produce things faster. And we've after all the improvements in the 90s from the technology changes, we've gained a lot of those advantages. So now we got to figure out how to get to the next level. And I think working in a global economy does that. It allows the U.S. worker to become more efficient, to create more goods, and to reap more rewards because of that.
Yeah, I never thought before social media that I would have an international audience or an international clientele base for our consulting services. I never thought that I'd be selling stuff internationally. I came from an old brick and mortar business sort of thing when I started a lot of companies brick and mortar wise. And I never thought that I would be, just from the cost effect of what it used to cost in a brick and mortar world, it was cost prohibitive. But now you have the ability to, work anywhere in the world, telecom, and be able to, you don't have to have big fancy offices, big fancy phones, big fancy this, that, and the other expensive phone lines. The democratization of the internet has brought information to everyone. And so it's just a matter of how you can utilize that and do it. And hopefully it brings a better humanity. I mean, I certainly like to see us have a place where we don't have borders and walls, and where we don't have tariffs and, this country or this person is better than us, or we're better than them, that whole sort of thing. Hopefully we're going to grow. I think we're going to grow out of this as the older generation passes away. That seems to be trying to claw us back into the 50s. In the new generation, they're just acceptable to, this phone generation, the millennials, the Gen X or Ys or whatever the hell they're called this week. They're fine with these sort of changes and what's going on in the world. They're fine with AI and stuff. They're not sitting there going, "Oh, the sky is going to fall and the world's going to end on us."
Well, I think with the international community that you're involved in, like you said, it's you get to know people from other cultures and other lands, and it's really hard to hate somebody once you know them, and so that's one thing that we've been really big about, because I know on my U.S. team, I've got people in Washington and Oregon and Florida and Texas and Illinois and other places, and just having a cohesive group with the Philippines where we are all on video conferences together. The leadership team spans both hemispheres, if you will. I think that opportunity for some of the guys that that work for me that maybe had never been experienced, or that where they see the skills of the people on our Philippine team and are able to communicate with them. It just brings the world closer together, you will. I think it just in one small step, and it's going to take a lot of that for other people to have those opportunities and see the global community that we're in.
I love it too, because we're moving to a society slowly where we make money by using our minds and less so much of our body. I mean, even in your business, it used to be that architects and engineers would work with paper and pen,
sure,
and all those protractors, all that stuff.
Yep.
I think they tried teaching me in one of my classes in school. Protractor and what's the square and the protractor and the
compass.
the compass, yeah, the
Yep.
round ruler thing, and I hated all of that. Of course, obviously for me, I'm probably better at video games than I am at engineering. So put it that way. In fact, I can do the most horrible build job you've ever seen on any IKEA product. It will literally fall apart in seconds. So clearly, engineering is not my thing. So I have a lot of respect for you guys and artists and people that can draw something brilliant like the San Francisco Bridge or a space shuttle out of nothing.
Sure.
Meanwhile, I'd just be like, I don't know, let's take some pieces of wood and tape them together, maybe some glue. I'm thinking glue. Elmer's probably.
Yeah, it's the information age, and so being able to take information from the field and put it into a computer environment or 3D environment, and then create the drawings for a new cell tower or a new fast food restaurant, which we do a lot of as well, and then that being given as a material to the contractor so that they're able to construct the stuff. It's amazing. I think people don't realize that that fast food chain, when it did that branding upgrade, like how many people had to come together to make that happen. And it seems so simple on the outside, but
and even cellular phones that a lot of these kids, a lot of these kids love to do. They're probably listening on one right now. Even these cell phones, need to have engineers that design them and get all those pieces and parts crammed into a little phone that you can want to hold in your hand. I mean, I remember talking with my friend Annie Grignon, and they were trying to figure out how to get, you were dealing with this very minuscule sort of real estate for the iPhone when they were first building it. And, you're trying to get the phone in there and you're trying to get a camera in there. And there's only so much space that you have. And, and the modem is the size it is at that given time that the iPhone was built. And you're just like, I don't know, what do we, how do we get all this stuff into this little package? And that's engineering for you. I mean, if you've ever taken apart an iPhone or even like a watch. I remember I was joking with a friend of mine who collects watches the other day, and he posted a beautiful watch that he likes to collect, I think, online. And I said, oh, he took it apart. He says, sometimes I like to take these watches apart just to see, how they're made and stuff, all the engineering that goes into them. And I said, oh, yeah, we did that to our dad's expensive watch when we were kids.
Yeah.
We couldn't put it back together. He said, I hope you're kidding me. And I was like, no. Trust me or not, because I think my ass is still sore from the spanking 30 years later.
So the world still needs a lot of smart people out there. So
definitely. And judging that I'm in the world, we need even more smart people. I'm dumbing it down as best I can. And God knows we've got enough idiots running around this place like me. So we need more people like you. So, and plus it's a very good industry. If someone is thinking about getting into that industry, it pays really well. I mean,
absolutely,
need for it. And I remember, I think it was over the last 5 to 10 years, I've been hearing CEOs alarmingly call out that our American schools aren't pumping out enough engineers, and it could lead to, the fabric of our nation, infrastructure-wise, being in trouble. But I guess hopefully we have other engineers we can go to that are in other countries, like with what you guys are doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I went to engineering school, got my engineering degree, and it's there's going to be engineers, but the U.S. has always had immigrants, help fill those gaps, and I think that if we close ourselves in, we're going to lose that advantage that we've had in the past, where we're able to bring the smartest and best people from around the world, and so that's, I think, a part of the equation that people sometimes forget about.
Oh yeah, I mean, Steve Jobs, his father was an immigrant from Armenia.
I don't know. That sounds about right. Yeah, I know Elon Musk from South Africa, right? So
yeah, Elon Musk from South Africa. I mean, a human being. I wish we could get to this point. I mean, one of my favorite statements or positions is my position is the song "Imagine" by John Lennon, and I think he states it all. I mean, there's a point where cerebrally we have to come to a conclusion as human beings, regardless of flag or country, that we're all human, and we all wake up. We all want to raise our children. We all want to love them. We all want the best for them. I remember years ago when I was growing up, hiding under my desk with the Russian nuclear threat. I was in elementary school. I remember Sting put out the song about the Russians, and he said, the Russians love their children too. They're just like us. They just want to live. And here we've got these horrific leaders like Baryshnikov and who else were some of the Russian leaders back in the day? That were saying death to America and we'll destroy America. And now we're kind of have the same thing going on in our country with this assault on immigrants, and we don't realize what a rich resource they are in bringing people to this country. Some of the best people I've ever known are immigrants. In fact, they might be better than some of the white trash America people. Thank God I'm white trash, so I can pull that joke without seems as racist. Although, hang on, I'm getting a call from the president. I may have to apologize for that.
Okay.
See, I'm going to be joining the ranks of Samantha Bee. So anyway, it's awesome that you're doing this. What's your vision for the future employment in the architecture and engineering design in a global economy? Where are we going that way?
Well, I think it's inevitable that as engineering firms and architectural firms kind of realize that they don't want to be, they want to focus on their engineering and their architecture and do more and more in the world, that there's going to be this global setup where you're going to be looking for the talent where it's located to best utilize or best complete the project that you want to complete. So the high level, if you will, architectural engineering thinking that's happening here in the U.S., supplemented with what I call the blue collar work of the drafting, is, I think, a formula that's already happening with the biggest companies in the world. My brother works for one of the largest engineering companies in the world. And when I said, hey, I'm starting CAD sourcing, you want to utilize our services? He's like, well, we already have our office in India and we have another office in the Philippines. So, we've already, we can't use you. But the small and medium-sized companies that want to increase their output, increase their top line, do more work and compete with these international companies are going to be taking advantage of that. And I think that's going to have a positive impact globally as places like the Philippines are able to provide higher level services and improve the situation for their communities.
And one of the reasons I had you on is I, of course, wanted to, there are people out there that are like, how can I start my own global business? How can I, do the same sort of things that you did? And I don't want to get into the politics of the Philippines, which are rife with probably bad places we can go. But maybe give me some advice on just what's your advice as to handling, the business of politics. Sometimes being in business in some of these countries, you can run into politics and maybe leaders and stuff that can be that could present challenges maybe to your business.
Sure. Yeah. I think that was that was something that we had to think about as we were growing the company and like, do we really want to invest all this time and money in a company that's really dependent on a Filipino workforce and stability, as you said? Luckily, even though there's, every country has its issues, the Philippines' relationship with the U.S. is very strong. That the Philippines was a colony of the U.S. for many decades, and the economy of the Philippines is so intertwined with the U.S. that I think you can be pretty confident that that's going to continue, well into the future. So certainly, there's countries that I would be concerned about that. If I were to start a global company, I would be concerned about that. But as big a part of that is having somebody you can trust on the ground. So I was lucky enough to have family members to help me set up the business. It's fully above board. We pay all our taxes. The employees get all the benefits that they're supposed to be getting according to the employment laws. And so having somebody that you trust is the most important key. So you could probably start business. I know people that have businesses started in Cuba. I know people that have businesses in Mexico, and the main factor there is having somebody you can trust. You hear horror stories of somebody starts up a business, they get 3 or 4 people in it, starts to get a little traction, and next thing you know, that manager or somebody that you hired steals all your clients or steals all your employees or whatever, and that's obviously not a good situation. So I think that's probably the first thing you should look into, or make sure you have, and then certainly you got to look at the political situation and make sure that's something that's tenable as well.
Yeah, they certainly seem to be changing quite a bit now lately as we've been going through this nationalistic sort of thing, and a lot of countries have started closing inward with the refugee crisis that have been caused around the world by mainly Syria at this point. And then there's the refugees in I can't remember where they're at, but yeah, it's definitely interesting. I imagine, business seems to go on in a lot of these countries regardless of politics. I mean, I don't think anybody's shutting their business down. Well, I don't know. They might, if they're in the import-export business, they might be in trouble with some of the tariffs they're talking about doing. Sure. I've heard there's some sour gum ships that are sitting off the China coast that can't
really
because of the tariffs now. So whoever is selling those in America is getting screwed, but hopefully they vote proper.
Well, it's a tough time to be in the physical goods situation with all this international intrigue that affects you, and you're just trying to you're just trying to make a living.
But I think that's more important to what we were talking about earlier, where it's great that we're getting into these businesses and computers and information age where people can make more money with their minds. We're always going to have goods and services, especially commodity goods like orange juice, oranges, apples, soybeans, all that sort of stuff. Those are always going to be probably indicative as long as humans decide they still want to eat and have goods made the way they are. But yeah, it's great that we can now have an information society where you can make money selling information and doing all that stuff. So it's really cool. So, anything else you want to add, Bryan?
No, I just wanted to thank you again for having me on. This was a lot of fun. And if anyone wants to reach out to me, come on, check me out on cadsourcing.com. Shoot me an email. I'd love to chat.
Sounds good. And for those of my audience, we certainly appreciate you guys tuning in. And we think you guys are the greatest. You guys are the most awesome. So be sure to go to Google Play, iTunes, subscribe there, tell your friends to subscribe there. Go to youtube.com/Chris Voss, hit that bell notification button, and we'll see you guys next time.